Welcome to The Turnaround Artists, a podcast about turning things around when they don't go our way. Tune in each week to hear stories of impressive personal and professional turnarounds from a variety of interesting guests. This podcast was inspired by the recent happy turnarounds of its producers, Marisa Mitchell and me, Brian McFarland. We look forward to speaking with you. Last time on The Turnaround Artist, you heard a story about a business turnaround from my friend Stu Zakum, who helped bring the Showtime network to prominence. Today, I'm speaking with my co-producer, Marisa, who will share a personal turnaround story that I've always found very powerful. After her life got turned upside down all of a sudden, she rebuilt it step by step. I'll let her take it from here.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me. I'm hoping my story can help people who may be facing similar challenges. I'm going to start with the lowest point in my life because the best turnarounds happen after hitting bottom, which for me was in the summer of 2022. At the beginning of the summer, I was a regular mom, a 50-something mother of three, living on Long Island. And I was about to celebrate my 25th wedding anniversary by taking the whole family on a trip to Sicily.
Wow. Okay. One quick, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Quick question. What do you think the average length in the United States is? I did my research before this. Forbes 2 years ago, statistics. What do you think?
I think it's definitely less than 25. I would say about 15.
It's the figure 8. I found that
Wow.
surprising. So
That is
anyway.
surprisingly low.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was about to hit number 25, which compared to that statistic is pretty impressive at the beginning of the summer. But by the end of that summer, my marriage had ended completely out of the blue. I can't get into the reasons why. They're really not important because we're talking about how we turn things around, not how we hit bottom. I was living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment in Midtown East. And I had minimal community. I had left behind my beloved neighbors. I had no job, and now I had to support myself financially 100%. And I had no longer a life partner. I was, as you can imagine, Brian, very, very lonely and felt displaced. And those feelings were so intense that to distract myself from the pain, like many people do after a separation, I started dating with this newfound freedom very indiscriminately, just so I could have some semblance of companionship and a brief respite from the pain. And I vividly remember one night in my apartment having popcorn for dinner. This is after cooking home cooked meals for my family. And, you know, the popcorn was basically seasoned with the salt from my tears.
Jeez. My goodness. Well, do you remember what kind of popcorn it was?
It's critical to the story, Ryan.
Of course it is.
It was Newman's Own. Newman's Own, my favorite.
Love that brand. Love that brand. But seriously, I do know, I know you, and I've heard your story, and I do need to provide compassion for you because this is a serious predicament, and it just begs the question how you started turning things around.
Thanks for asking. So I needed community. I needed work. I needed love. I started with community. I thought that would be the easiest place to start. I have always been a fitness buff. I was a college athlete, and gyms were very important to my sense of identity and belonging. So I wanted to find a gym in the city to replicate the sense of community I developed in Equinox on Long Island. So I got an Equinox All Access Pass, and I started basically dating gyms, not JIMS, but GYMS. So basically I was trying out different Equinoxes until I found the one that was right for me. it took a while. I started with Columbus Circle, which is in a basement. It was a transient gym because a lot of people go there who work in the neighborhood. It didn't have a neighborhood feel, and I got very few smiles, very little eye contact, and I thought this isn't very hopeful. So then I looked what else was nearby, and Rock Center Equinox was an alternative. So when I walked in, I thought, oh my goodness, this place is gorgeous. It was grand and well appointed, but in the end, it was too corporate for me. It wasn't a good fit for my vibe, as they say, which was illustrated by the locker room shower heads, which surprisingly, they, instead of coming above my head, the shower heads came right below my chin. And I had to like crouch to shampoo my hair, which is really odd for such an expensive gym. So
That's that. I mean, you are a tall woman, so I'm guessing the shower heads were probably the same height as some of the guys you dated.
yes, that is true.
So that's a
I'm
sense of,
5'10",
of lowering the bar, like literally lowering the bar.
literally along the bar. Yes, I did that. So eventually I discovered an Equinox on East 54th, and it wasn't as glamorous as the others. It was a bit more functional, but it had a great neighborhood feel. And the most importantly, it was warm. I felt like it welcomed me. And one particular cycling instructor who comforted me after I broke down in tears during her class, she sealed the deal for me. So that was the gym I committed to, and it helped me start to regain that sense of community.
That's awesome. So always amazing in life how it could just be one person, in this case, a cycling instructor who listened and made an impact on you. So congratulations on that. So we got the gyms turned around. Now work. Got to get a job because that also tends to be a great source of community for many, especially post-COVID, where we all felt so isolated. Talk to me about how the job search goes, and I guess it's got some similarities to dating, right?
It does, it does. So you have to experience a lot of rejection before you find the right fit. For many people, job searches are tough at first until everything aligns and you find the right fit. And I had a very unconventional work history, like a lot of stay-at-home moms. I was a part-time stay-at-home mom and worked part-time. And because of family responsibilities, I had a very unconventional work history. It was a mix of nonprofit, social science research and education, communications, and tech startups. So I had a lot of breadth, not a lot of depth. So I had trouble even getting interviews. I faced a lot of rejection. But one day, a friend contacted me to say she was exiting out of her role or wanted to exit out of her role as the executive director of a nonprofit. And she encouraged me to apply for the position. It was a perfect fit because it was a science education oriented nonprofit. So my biotech and nonprofit background matched. And I was so happy to have gotten that job. And the job provided more of a sense of community for me, like work does. And in addition, a sense of purpose. Giving back to the community was for me, I can just speak for myself, what was very important element in my turnaround story. Because when you experience pain, you turn that into helping others. It alleviates some of that pain. And that's one of the reasons I want to tell the story today, is hoping that it could give some solace to others in similar situations.
Oh, that's awesome. So again, we got a theme here. Just took one person, right? And
Mm-hmm.
all right, so we got two checked off. So now the only thing left is finding love. Probably save this for last on purpose because this is the hardest. Nope, you're not in control. You're not in control. So
That's right. You don't know, you don't know when that person is going to enter your sphere. And all you can do is send out the right energy and hoping you'll attract that person. So finding love was the trickiest part. I knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but I also knew it wouldn't happen if I continued on my current path. I remembered when I hit the bottom of my dating life. I told you I had lowered the bar. I was looking for any source of confidence and positive feedback. And I ended up dating guys who didn't treat me right or who just weren't interested in something deeper. So eventually, it clicked in my head, you know what? I had to look for the right person. And I made a conscious decision to raise the bar and only date guys who treated me well. And interestingly, I got lucky because as soon as I made this mental shift, the next Hinge date I went on happened to be the best first date of my entire life.
all right. No, damn. I mean, best first date of your entire life. You got to tell us why was that?
I have to admit, I didn't have high expectations based on the profile. So when I walked in and I saw the spark in his eye and his nurturing demeanor, I felt cared for, and I felt like he was very curious about me. He was asking me so many questions, really wanted to know what made me tick. So I had blocked off just 1 hour for this date, and we talked and talked for 3.5 hours. Would have talked longer, but it was a work night. And then it became a great love story.
That makes me very, very happy. And interesting that you didn't have high expectations going into the date and it turned out
Yeah,
to be great.
one never knows. Don't judge a date by a profile.
Don't judge a date by its profile. That should be on the
That should
Hinge
be our Hinge
tagline.
slogan.
Oh, too funny. Too funny. Well, Marisa, as we approach the end of our time together, and I've really enjoyed it, I'd love to ask the guest, obviously in this case, really give us a summation of a takeaway that you can share that really enabled your turnaround, because I think that's what's most helpful to the listeners is your experience and maybe something they can take away from it. So if you would.
Sure. I would say if I had to pick one thing that enabled my turnaround, I would say the fact that I approached my emotional health very strategic, sort of like one would approach the turnaround of a business with a strategic plan. I had a strategic plan for my well-being. And I would say that that strategy is number one, I identified my needs. Okay, I lost my community. I need a sense of community. I lost my job. I need a sense of purpose. I lost my husband. I need a partner. I need love. At least, partnerships take time, but I needed somebody to care for me. So I took little steps towards fulfilling each one. It was a gradual and sometimes disheartening process, but it would have only happened if I had the right strategy in place. And 2 years later, I can say because of that approach, the turnaround is pretty solid.
Oh, that's awesome. So well said. And this is all great from where we started, thus the turnaround. And I do want to hear some more about that love story.
Well, Brian, that is quite a long story. And I know you want to keep these episodes digestible. So that story has a lot of twists and turns. You'll just have to invite me back on your show.
Well, consider yourself invited. Myself and the listeners, I will speak for them. They do want to hear that love story. So thank you so much, Marisa, for joining us today. Really appreciate it, and for sharing and opening up your story.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Turnaround Artists. We hope you got some helpful insights into how to make a tough situation better. If you have a turnaround story you'd like to share with us, send an email to hello@theturnaroundartist.org. Tune in next week and be sure to follow and like us on your favorite podcast platform. In the meantime, keep turning things around. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the show.